man is being subjected to his own inventions, that he is now the victim of his own technology and the victim of his own applied science, instead of being in control of it.
Right now, as you read this, your phone is probably within arm's reach. Maybe you've already glanced at it twice since starting this sentence. That urge you feel, that subtle pull toward your device, isn't random, it is engineered. You are living in what might be the most sophisticated prison ever designed, and the most terrifying part. You hold the key, yet you keep locking yourself in. This isn't hyperbole. This is the reality of modern existence, where freedom has been redefined as the ability to consume endless streams of pleasure on demand. But what if I told you that this very freedom is actually a form of slavery, more effective than any chain or cage ever devised? What if the pursuit of instant gratification, the very thing we believe liberates us, is actually the mechanism by which we surrender our autonomy, our critical thinking, and ultimately, our humanity? Welcome to the pleasure trap, a psychological prison where the bars are made of dopamine, the guards are algorithms, and the warden is our own conditioned desire for immediate satisfaction. Nearly a century ago, while George Orwell was crafting his vision of authoritarian control through fear and surveillance in 1984, another writer was imagining a far more insidious form of oppression. Aldous Huxley, in Brave New World, predicted a society where control wouldn't come through force, but through pleasure. His citizens didn't need to be threatened into compliance. They were so overwhelmed with entertainment, so saturated with instant gratification, that the very idea of rebellion never occurred to them. Huxley's dystopia seemed impossible then. Today, it reads like a user manual for modern society. In Huxley's world, citizens were given Soma, a perfect drug that eliminated all discomfort without side effects. Feeling sad? Take Soma. Experiencing doubt? Take Soma. Facing an existential crisis? Soma solved everything. The result was a population of happy slaves who never questioned their condition because they never experienced the discomfort that might motivate them to seek change. We don't have Soma, but we have something arguably more powerful, an entire ecosystem designed to deliver instant relief from any form of psychological discomfort. Social media platforms engineered to trigger dopamine releases, streaming services that eliminate the painful experience of waiting, dating apps that remove the anxiety of rejection, shopping platforms that fulfill desires before we even know we have them. The mechanism is simple yet devastatingly effective. Every time you feel boredom, your hand automatically reaches for your phone. Every time you experience loneliness, you scroll through carefully curated lives on Instagram. Every time you face uncertainty, you lose yourself in the endless scroll of TikTok. The pattern becomes so automatic, so deeply ingrained, that it feels like choice. But is it really? Consider your last moment of genuine boredom, not the manufactured kind that drives you to your phone, but real, uncomfortable emptiness. When was it? If you can't remember, you've already been captured by the system. This dependence doesn't happen overnight. It is the result of systematic conditioning that begins in childhood and continues throughout our lives. The educational system teaches us to consume information rather than think critically. The job market rewards compliance over creativity. The entertainment industry provides constant distraction from the deeper questions of existence. The process is so gradual, so seemingly natural, that we mistake it for normal human development. But there is nothing normal about a generation that can't sit in silence for 5 minutes without reaching for a device. There is nothing natural about needing constant stimulation to feel alive. Modern conditioning operates through what psychologists call intermittent reinforcement, the most addictive form of behavioral programming. Like a slot machine, your phone delivers unpredictable rewards. Sometimes it is a funny meme, sometimes a validation through likes, sometimes news that makes you feel informed. This unpredictability is precisely what makes it so powerfully addictive. Tech companies have weaponized our brain chemistry. Every notification is designed to trigger a small hit of dopamine, the neurotransmitter associated with pleasure and reward. Over time, your brain becomes dependent on these microdoses of satisfaction. The natural dopamine response to real-world experiences, deep conversations, physical achievements, creative endeavors, begins to feel inadequate compared to the intense, immediate hits provided by digital stimuli. This creates a vicious cycle. As your tolerance for natural pleasure decreases, you need increasingly intense artificial stimulation to feel satisfied. Real life begins to feel boring, slow, and unsatisfying. The very experiences that once brought joy, reading a book, having a conversation, walking in nature, now feel impossibly tedious compared to the hyper-stimulating alternative reality in your pocket. There is a fundamental truth about human psychology that our pleasure-obsessed culture desperately wants us to forget. Suffering has a purpose. Discomfort is not a bug in the human experience. It is a feature. It is the mechanism by which we grow, learn, and develop resilience. When we systematically avoid all forms of psychological discomfort, we don't eliminate suffering. We simply postpone it, while simultaneously destroying our capacity to handle it. A person who has never experienced true difficulty becomes fragile in the face of any challenge. A society that medicates every form of emotional pain with instant pleasure becomes collectively weak and manipulable. Consider the difference between someone who has learned to sit with difficult emotions and someone who immediately reaches for distraction the moment discomfort arises. The first person develops emotional intelligence, resilience, and inner strength. The second becomes increasingly dependent on external sources of regulation, more fragile with each avoided difficulty. This systematic avoidance of discomfort has a more sinister consequence: the gradual erosion of personal agency. When you train yourself to seek immediate relief from any psychological tension, you lose the ability to make conscious choices about your responses. Your behavior becomes predictable, automatic, and therefore controllable. A person who cannot tolerate boredom will always choose stimulation over reflection. A person who cannot sit with uncertainty will always choose false certainty over truth. A person who cannot endure temporary discomfort will always choose immediate pleasure over long-term fulfillment. These aren't really choices at all. They're compulsions dressed up as freedom. Modern society has sold us a lie that happiness is the highest goal of human existence. But this definition of happiness, a constant state of pleasure without pain, is not just unrealistic, it is psychologically destructive. Real happiness, the kind that provides lasting satisfaction, emerges not from the absence of difficulty, but from the presence of meaning. Viktor Frankl, who survived the Nazi concentration camps, discovered something profound about human nature. People can endure almost any suffering if they can find meaning in it. Conversely, people living in comfort, but without purpose, often experience deep despair, despite having everything they could materially want. The difference between pleasure and purpose is crucial to understand. Pleasure is always temporary. It provides a brief high followed by a return to baseline or even below. Purpose, on the other hand, provides sustained satisfaction that doesn't diminish over time. It gives life direction, meaning, and resilience in the face of inevitable challenges. Pleasure is passive. It is something that happens to you. Purpose is active. It is something you create. When your life revolves around consuming pleasurable experiences, you remain fundamentally dependent on external sources for your satisfaction. When your life revolves around building something meaningful, you develop internal sources of fulfillment that no one can take away. This is why individuals with a strong sense of purpose are so threatening to systems that rely on emotional dependence. A person who finds meaning in their work, relationships, and personal growth doesn't need constant entertainment. They don't need to fill every moment with stimulation. They're not easily manipulated by promises of instant gratification because they've discovered something more valuable: the deep satisfaction that comes from creating rather than consuming. The first step in reclaiming your mental freedom is recognizing that you are in a battle for your attention, and currently you are losing. The enemy isn't pleasure itself, but the weaponization of pleasure as a means of control. To win this battle, you must become strategic about your relationship with immediate gratification. This doesn't mean becoming an ascetic who rejects all enjoyment. It means consciously choosing when, how, and why you engage with pleasurable stimuli. It means creating deliberate periods of deprivation that allow your brain to recalibrate its reward systems and rediscover satisfaction in subtle, natural experiences. Start small but be consistent. Try spending 1 hour each day without any digital stimulation. No phone, no music, no podcasts, no videos. Just sit with your thoughts. At first, this will feel unbearable. Your brain, addicted to constant input, will demand distraction. But if you persist, something remarkable happens. You begin to remember what the modern world has convinced us that any form of psychological discomfort is a problem to be solved immediately. This is perhaps the most destructive lie we've been told. Discomfort is not your enemy. It is your teacher. It is the signal that something important is happening in your inner world that deserves attention. Learning to sit with difficult emotions without immediately reaching for distraction is like developing a psychological muscle. The more you practice tolerating discomfort, the stronger you become. Anxiety stops feeling like an emergency. Boredom stops feeling like a crisis. Sadness stops feeling like something to be fixed immediately. This doesn't mean wallowing in negative emotions or refusing all comfort. It means developing the capacity to choose your response rather than being driven by compulsion. It means becoming the conscious director of your inner experience rather than its helpless victim. Question everything. Why do you reach for your phone the moment you feel unstimulated? Who benefits from your addiction to distraction? What could you accomplish if you weren't spending hours each day consuming content that adds no value to your life? The more you question your automatic behaviors, the more you realize how many of your choices aren't really choices at all. They're programmed responses to engineered stimuli, but awareness is the first step toward freedom. You can't change what you don't recognize. The ultimate antidote to the slavery of instant gratification is discovering what genuinely matters to you. This requires honest introspection about your values, your strengths, and your vision for the kind of person you want to become. It means asking difficult questions. What would you do if you weren't afraid? What problems do you feel called to solve? What legacy do you want to leave? Purpose isn't something you find lying around. It is something you create through deliberate choice and sustained effort. It emerges from the intersection of what you are good at, what the world needs, and what you are passionate about. But you'll never discover it while you are constantly distracted by the endless stream of artificial stimulation. If you've read this far, something inside you is already awakening. You've felt the truth in these words because you've experienced the trap firsthand. You know what it is like to lose hours to mindless scrolling. You've felt the hollow satisfaction of digital dopamine hits. You've sensed that there is something more meaningful available to you, but you haven't known how to access it. The path forward isn't easy. When you choose to break free from the pleasure trap, you are swimming against a powerful current. Society will resist your transformation because your freedom threatens its illusions. People around you may feel uncomfortable with your changes because they'll be forced to confront their own dependencies. But here is what awaits you on the other side: the profound satisfaction of being truly alive. The deep peace that comes from knowing yourself. The unshakable confidence that emerges from facing your fears. The genuine happiness that exists not in the absence of difficulty, but in the presence of meaning. The choice before you is clear, even if it is not easy. You can continue sleepwalking through life, seeking the next hit of artificial pleasure, avoiding any discomfort that might wake you up. Or you can choose to reclaim your birthright as a conscious, autonomous human being. This isn't about perfection, it is about direction. It is about making the daily choice to engage with reality rather than escape from it. It is about building something meaningful rather than just consuming what others have created. It is about becoming someone who cannot be easily manipulated because you've discovered an internal source of satisfaction that no external force can control. The pleasure trap is real, but it is not permanent. Every moment offers a new opportunity to choose consciousness over compulsion, purpose over pleasure, freedom over slavery. The question isn't whether you can break free, it is whether you will. Your life is waiting for you on the other side of your comfort zone. The only question is, when will you be brave enough to claim it?